To have one person in your family diagnosed with MND is heartbreaking, but to have 5 members, one family, is truly devastating. My name's Lyndal and we have familial MND in my family. So far it's taken my grandfather, my father, my auntie, my cousin and my gorgeous sister. This is my MND story. Dad was an absolute clown. He loved to make jokes. He had the driest sense of humour, but when he said something, it was bloody funny. He was an absolute cracker. I just remember we laughed a lot as kids. I moved to London when I was 27. Mum and Dad came to visit me, and Dad just wasn't himself. He was getting exhausted quite quickly. And then, so we assumed that he had a flu, and then they had been home a couple of weeks and Mum called and said, we think it might be something a bit more, he's having lots of tests. We weren't worried, we didn't know what it was, but then he was an architect and he started to not be able to use his arm very well, his right arm, and had test after test after test, and we were told it was MND, which we didn't know what that was. He deteriorated really quickly. He was at home, so I moved in with Mum and Dad, and Mum and I nursed him through it. And he died at home, and we were with him. And, God, sorry. But it was when Grandma saw what was happening to Dad, and she's the one that said that this is really familiar. She'd seen her husband go through the same disease. That was at the point that we realised that, okay, there's a pattern. It wasn't really until Auntie Carol was diagnosed that it got serious. It became real and somewhat worrying. Then when our cousin was diagnosed, I remember the day very, very clearly. It was our son Spencer's 3rd birthday party. We're all having a lovely time, all the kids running around, Joe's kids, it was all nuts, and Joe looked at her phone and read a message, and I saw her face and she looked shocked, and I asked her if everything was okay, and she said it was. So we did the happy birthday, cut the cake, presents, all of that, lovely day, and then Joe sent the kids out, sat us down and said, there's something I need to tell everybody. Our cousin Michelle's just been diagnosed. And everyone just went silent because that was shattering. It had gone into another generation at that point. So that put Joe and I in the firing line, and our 3 other cousins, we were exposed and felt it. That aside from the tragedy that Michelle was at the time nursing her mum, and her mum had moved in with her while she nursed her through her MND. It just didn't seem that life could be that cruel to somebody, to a family. And for her mum then to have to deal with the fact that her daughter now has the disease, it was a dark time. Unfortunately, Auntie Carol then had to watch her daughter pass away from it. She had the quick strain, which Auntie Carol had it for a few years at that point, and she outlived her daughter, which was just devastating. Yeah, she passed away within the 12 weeks. So Jo was the annoying little sister. She was a rat bag. She was so confident. It was just fun and easy. So when Jo first came to me and told me that she had it, I told her she was being ridiculous, but it was real. So she just went to wave to somebody in the car park goodbye, and her arm did something weird, and she said at that moment she knew, but then it was confirmed. She went to the supermarket on her way home from work the next day, and she just had a shopping bag and climbed into the car and went to put the bag onto the other seat, and she couldn't lift the bag, so she knew. And that was the arm that went. I do recall talking to her one day. I was driving through Malvern and she said something, and I heard it in her voice that it had gone to her tongue. Her speech was affected, and I had to pull over. I, at that point, thought this is the fast one. This isn't the Auntie Carol version. This is the Michelle and Dad version. And I said, Joe, and she said, I know. I don't think any of us had the chance to really absorb what had happened or what was going on. It was so quick. You know, there was literally a new symptom every day. So we ended up going to Sorrento, booked a house down there, all very last minute, with really close friends and family. We did a Club Tropicana day where we've got photos of her sat up drinking cocktails and mocktails. And it was a happy time. Then it was Halloween, the 31st of October. We did trick-or-treating with the kids. Joe and her husband and myself went around in the car while the kids were all trick-or-treating. And that was our last full day, which was, we just didn't get back from Sorrento. We ended up at the Frankston Hospital, which was a shock. We just hadn't anticipated that she'd deteriorate that quickly. It's heartbreaking to watch the 4 children together and know, and it goes through your mind a lot, you know, which one, which 2, which 3 or 4 even, or maybe none, but you just, you know, the chances are, certainly for Joe's side, it doesn't bode well, but I want them to just live their lives. I just hate the disease for what I saw it do to Joe and to Dad, obviously. And it makes me angry that it's so disgusting and so unforgiving and nasty and cruel. You know, it's broken my mum to watch her daughter go through that, after having watched her husband as well, but then to watch your daughter go through that, I can't imagine. And that's the bit that I worry about, is that I'm around long enough to see one of my children get it. It's called the beast for a reason. It's an absolutely despicably nasty beast. The familial MND is statistically more aggressive than the sporadic version in terms of the length of time that you have from symptoms or diagnosis to the end. My cousin was 9 weeks, my dad was 12 weeks, and Joe was 6 weeks and 3 days from first symptom. So if my daughter was to fall pregnant and find out that she carried it, and that means that I do, the guilt that I've passed it on would be overwhelming. And that's the thing I'm probably most scared of, is the guilt that I'm going to feel. You have to keep up the facade and be festive and keep everything alive for them, but if it wasn't for the kids, I don't even think we'd acknowledge Christmas, to be honest, because it just doesn't feel right. Christmas used to be such a beautiful festive time, and it's just not got the same. You can only be as celebratory as when there's a spare chair where Joe should sit at Christmas, and she loved it. You know, we'd all cook, and she loved Christmas, so it just doesn't feel right. But we all smile and laugh and do presents with the kids. But it's hard.